So Ber-Henda Williams, I'm from Metro Detroit area. I'm a culture shifter. I work with empathic, soulful, female identified leaders who want to use their gifts to make a shift, a cultural shift in our world. I Black women. Am down for Black women. Black women are always centered in anything and everything that I do. I do believe in collaboration, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interested in healing wounds between feminism and womanism. Like, how can we bridge the chasm? Because if you're going to, for women or those who are female identified, how do we do that in ways that are inclusive?
Yeah.
We can't be afraid to have tough conversations. I'm a little late to the party, so right now I am reading Candace Bimbo's The Red Lip Theology.
Oh, what is that about? I'm late to the party too. What is it?
Red Lip Theology is, one woman's journey through her faith, where it has maybe in some places failed her, and how does she incorporate her whole self inside her faith. So Christian, she does adopt some African traditional religion and kind of weave. She is the product of a single parent, and so she talks about up and some of the shame that was shrouded in that, but her mother's refusal to apologize, and that no way, shape, form, or fashion is her existence a mistake. And while other people have had to deal with it, she was never made to feel a victim or ashamed. She's accomplished. She has her degree in theology from Duke University. She is a Southern girl, and she takes us through ritual and practice through makeup as a way to affirm herself and her identity, all of her identity. And I believe it was Melissa Perry who did her forward.
Yeah. Time to get the plug.
Audible, and it is just it's really giving me life. And again, centering the experience of Black women and liberation. And she talks about womanist. What are ways? And I always defer back to Audre Lorde's work. She said, master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. So, right. So if we're dreaming of liberation, what are the tools that we need to create a more just world? And I took out one of my quotes about resilience being a response, because it is.
Yes.
I'm resilient. I want to be soft. I want to relax. And, again, Tricia Hersey, going back to the nap ministry, like I want my rest and not feel guilty or feel like it is late, especially, as Black women and in the space that I'm in right now. I'm caregiving. My mother, we just laid her to rest last week. She had breast cancer and lung cancer. Oh girl, thank you. But look, she's liberated. My mama free.
Right. Yeah.
And my father with cognitive decline. So how do we navigate it all as a business owner, as a daughter, as a sister, as all the things that we're called to? And then how do we navigate, this society, this culture that we live in, which is often very punitive to us?
To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds can stack back against the wall, but even consider it such, no, you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sidelines, one too many times. Wicked games we play make me want to lose my mind. Found solitude, knowing it'll be over soon.
Hi everyone, welcome to Contrary to the Culture. I am your host, Jaisa King. This podcast has been created solely to explore the depths of cultures around the nation. We will have interviews from experts, challenge the mainstream ideas surrounding the cultural identities in our society, as well as make sure we touch on misconceptions we have about. All episodes are brought to you on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. on all major podcast platforms, not to mention my website, audacityofwomen.com. There, under the podcast tab, you can find transcripts from every episode. In order to know how we're doing, I need you to show us some love. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment your experiences, but most importantly, turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the episodes. Now that that's done, let's jump into our episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Contrary to the Culture. This week's video is going to be on the history of betrayal of the culture. Don't quote me on that because I know I probably put the title in totally different order, but that's okay. You know how I get down. Our first guest is going to be Ber-Henda Williams. She is going to jump into her background. We're going to talk about a few different things about, how can I put this, different perspectives in our culture, interchanging our behaviors so we can grow. Okay, so I know I'm playing with the words because I don't want to give you too much, but I want you to listen enough to know that we're going to be jumping into our misconceptions, our habits that are really keeping us from communicating with one another, with growing this community that can be supportive of one another, whether we look the same or not. I want to make sure we are diving into the topics around women of color. She has a lot of history with that in doing the cultural shifts. So I am super excited. I'm not going to give her too much, but I do want her to have a chance to introduce herself. So welcome. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all, we've already talked. We're gonna see y'all gonna see the clips, and I'm super excited. But this conversation is going to be interesting. You know how I can get all my viewers. I know how I am when it comes to trying to explain something that doesn't need to be explained. But just going into this topic, I'm super excited because just a little background, right? So for me, this topic was centered around understanding how culturally we continue to do the same thing over and over again. We are oblivious of the outside world, especially when it comes to people of color. And in my opinion, we don't take accountability. We don't acknowledge our hypocrisy because we want to just be comfortable where we are and not let people in and not accept change. I am a creature of habit. So this is not me throwing stones. I am a creature of habit. I can admit that. But I want to know, and I want to acknowledge that my growth over these past couple of years, y'all already know with my husband, he opens my mind to everything. But I have noticed that it keeps me back and it has caused a lot of issues. So my biggest thing is meeting people that are willing to do the same thing. So let's just jump into it, right? So my first topic or my first question I wanted to ask is, what did this topic mean to you? When you read it and you saw my email, what was your thoughts on what were you going to say with it?
You know, I always default back to, well, one, I'm just, again, honored to be in this space with you and having cultural conversations, because at least for me, I always default back to understanding, well, what do we mean by culture? Because culture can mean a lot of different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And I are both poets, so that is also part of culture.
Yeah.
Creativity, that's a huge part of culture, but also culture are norms, values, practices of a society. And so when I looked at the questions and, we connected, I immediately just wanted to center the cultural norms. So the practices, beliefs, behaviors of a community. Mm-hmm. When you even kind of look it down a little bit deeper, communities of color, Black, what are the things in our communities specifically that, yes, I believe that there are certain things in our communities that are to be revered and honored, but there are also things that we need to let go and heal.
Yes.
And as we navigate our identity and our personhood, and of course, we know that generationally, when we try to make changes, sometimes those changes can feel difficult. Well, think about this, and this just really always gets me, that at one moment, particularly when we think about a woman carrying life, you have 3 generations in your body. So my grandmother carried me. So whatever my grandmother was experiencing, and for context, my grandmother was born in 1915. She picked tobacco, right? So my grandmother picked tobacco in North Carolina We're talking about at the peak of bloody summers, can-see to can-see working, lynching. So these are the things that are happening in the culture at the time. So when you have that level of fear, which produces trauma, anxiety, I'm sure depression, fear, all of that's running rampant in the community, which means it's also lodged in the mother's body. So then that passes unconsciously to my mother, right? And then passes it to me because my grandmother is carrying my mother, who's carrying me. So here's where, because I don't believe in blaming and shaming. However, we do want to hold a space for accountability. What can I do now that I have knowledge? Because if you know better, you can do better. If our ancestors are running for dear life, they're not exactly have the space to pause and breathe like we do. And I don't take for granted that I'm the first woman in my in my bloodline that can take a nap. My mother couldn't do it. My grandmother couldn't do it. Definitely her mother couldn't do it. But I'm free enough, even with all the stuff that's going on in our society, and I'm not, disillusioned that we are still very much living in a white supremacist society. But even in that, I can take a nap. I can travel. I can pretty much go anywhere I want to go. I can dream dreams and not have them deferred. I have sisterhoods that will celebrate my dreams, and those dreams can become reality. I can co-create. I can collaborate with whomever I want. So with this level of freedom, generations prior could not experience it. They prayed about it. They dreamt about it. And even though in their lifetime they couldn't experience, and I do get emotional talking about this because this is heavy, we're our ancestors. Seriously, like it's not just lip service that we're our ancestors' wildest dreams. Like we see it on t-shirts, we see it in monikers, we see things like Black Girl Magic. This is real. It is Black Girl Magic. It is magic because the prayers, the devotions, the rituals, the services, all of those things that happened generations prior to our existence unfolded in perfect timing because we're here. We're demonstrations. So what do we do with all of this freedom, technology, wisdom? How do we incorporate it in ideating a world, a more just world, a more compassionate world? How do we do that? And of course, it always starts with self. But I have found that in this season in particular, healing and transformation happens in community. We cannot do this in isolation. We're not meant to do it in isolation. And again, I believe a trick of white supremacist delusion, and I have to give credit to Sonia Renee Taylor for that language, wants to isolate, that it's us versus man versus the environment versus time. And I believe that if we adopt a more co-creative communal way of being, that it's with that creation, nature, humanity, we all exist together, connected versus separated, then I think we will move a little bit differently in the world when we know that we're connected to everything.
Oh my gosh. First, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your past, your history. Oh my gosh, everything, because it's funny. I don't think I put it on there as a question, but I do have to ask. So right now, I am not aware of my ancestors' history. A lot of us are not aware of it. And something that has always bothered me is when people, and this may come off kind of brash, but I'm going to just say it. When people hold on to a part of history that they have no connection to. And that's not saying that it didn't happen to their ancestors, but I mean, genuinely know their ancestors' story and use it to fuel anger and hate and the separation. I understand. I can empathize. I can. I don't know what my great-great-grandmother went through. I don't. And I can't sit in a position to pretend like that is why I want equality or why I want us to come together. No, that's not why. My son is triracial. So I have so many different experiences that has led me to want this, but I cannot support when people use someone's actual story, such as yourself, and uses it to fuel it in such a negative way. It throws me off, and it makes me feel like we're supporting the narrative that we are hostile, that we aren't capable of moving forward, and that we just are waiting for our moment to retaliate. I guess when you think about other people's experiences, what are your thoughts? Like, do you wonder if they do know, or if they have any desire to move forward? I don't really have a question. I want to know. I just want to know your thoughts.
Okay. Well, just so I'm clear on the question, you want to know if I imagine that other people have similar experiences, or?
I guess that is a good point. Let me find a question. So when I think about that, right, when I think about people that lead with hate off of no experience or connection, how do you move forward to push your narrative of trying to connect everyone knowing your history?
Wow. So I will say this: I'm not the type of person to push anything. I don't believe in shitting on people. But I will say this: if we want to change anything, you have to first start with telling the truth, and the truth can be very uncomfortable. One of my favorite quotes comes from Sarah Jakes Roberts, and she said that God can't comfort what you don't confront. I know, right? Right. Just. So when I heard, this is what keeps us stifled and what keeps us stuck. And I'm not one to spiritually bypass or like to jump ahead, because we do, especially when we're holding great space. So people like you, people who are listening to this podcast that may be the black sheep in their family, or maybe they're trying to grow, or maybe they have their own businesses. Wherever you are in your journey, if you're trying to make a pivot or trying to evolve, it has to start first with truth telling. And so there can be, to your point, it may be a space where we hold on to the pain part. You know, we kind of get stuck in the, but this happened, and because this thing happened, and I'll just insert, racism, chattel slavery, like these are all deep things, and these are all truths. So therefore I can't. And maybe because we don't know our lineage, and I would just invite you to go on 23andMe or Ancestry.com, do the swab. And especially for your son, as you say, that's tri-cultural. Every last one of those bloodlines carries a story, a very powerful story, a story of maybe his interests, his proclivities to, what he's here to do in this one wondrous life that we get, or that we remember. I know some folks believe in reincarnation, but we only remember one life at a time. What is he here to do? What ancestor is he like? All of that shapes who we are. And I think that just even understanding your own family pathology gives you a glimpse into what's possible. And again, it's not to name, shame, or blame, but where is healing possible? What are some of the generational curses, if you will, we want to break? What are the things that we want to divest from? I didn't know until recently that my mother was actually diagnosed with depression. I did not know that. I felt that there was something maybe amiss. And then as I got older, I'm like, okay, I think my mom was depressed, but I didn't know that there was an actual diagnosis around it. And again, there's a generation. I don't blame, I'm not putting her up on a cross to nail her or shame her for not saying it. She had her reasons, right? She didn't share it. But now that we do know, and now I see where I get certain things from, what am I going to do with the information? All right.
And you hit the nail on the head. You did. Yes. That's exactly what it is. To go back a little bit. So not running with the pain. Exactly what I meant. It's cool. Please acknowledge everything we've been through, because every time I open a social media page, I learn something new. And I'm okay with that. And I could take that. But I don't need to be angry all the time. I don't. I'm okay with acknowledging it and figuring out how I can be better. I'm okay with that. But it does get a little exhausting. But to go forward with the mental health state, just as an example with your mother, I think that is so valuable because we get into a position, same thing within certain cultures, about not talking about certain things, but also not realizing that same way you said you can take a nap, they didn't have a position to really talk about mental health. We're free. It's time for us to get it. And then now we're here so we can have these kids that can do more. So each stage is progression, but we take it on as if it's something to bash that parent about. Well, why didn't you tell me you had all these issues? Why didn't you tell me you were going to be ungrateful that we're here? You know, there's so many things that can go into it, but it is important to acknowledge that. And I don't think I've had anyone point that out. So I thank you for that perspective. That's definitely very important to point out. I wasn't expecting these conversations. Okay. So when we are finding people to build our community, right? So it's great to keep people in our home. It's great to keep people close to us that we know. But if we are trying to expand this cultural shift, what would you say are things you look for to build that community, like the norms or the different personality traits that you want to add to yourself?
Oh my goodness. So, I think about this often because we hear things like blood is thicker than water and family is all you have. But I think that as I have gotten older and as I've watched the way my mother, who just recently made her transition, navigate the world, she was very intentional about her family. And what I mean by that, there have been friends that have been maybe more supportive and have shown up even more so than blood family. So I think when we talk about creating a cultural shift, when we talk about community, it is understanding your values, like what really drives your values. And I think that when you are, and this is, I want to choose my words carefully, but as part of our evolution. So when you're younger, you may have friends that you party with, and because that's just where you are in life. So in life, it's about securing a significant other or going through the woes of a significant other. You might find yourself in toxic cycles, and we may trauma bond in our early years. But as we grow and mature, and I've seen this a lot on social media, where there are people who are living a more sober life, like they don't drink, but they're shamed for not drinking. And it that kind of bothered me, in that why wouldn't you want to support someone who's trying to do better? Now, and this is just an example, but alcohol use. Everybody is different. If you know that being inebriated all the time, or maybe it doesn't take much for you to get, why you want to be around people who want to support you being better and doing things that are not detrimental to you. Or, we're definitely can be shamed for wanting to do better. Oh, you're acting brand new, or oh, you're being bougie, because maybe you want to make different lifestyle choices. You want to eat differently. You want to go to different places. We have gates. So our ear gate, our eye gate, or ear gate, eye gate, mouth. These are all gates. So we want to govern. What are we watching? What are we listening to? What are we speaking? Because our body is made of mostly water. Water definitely carries vibration. What do we want to be, do, or have? And that really does start with, of course, yes, our consciousness. But again, what are we feeding ourselves? Where are we spending time? With whom are we spending time? So I think, to answer your question, cultivating the community around your values, but then also being very judicious within the ways in which you guard your consumption. Like, what are you consuming on a daily basis?
Oh, I love that. Oh, man. So it's interesting that you bring that up. So my platform's values are created off of something that I've learned. Being self-aware is very important to me. Being aligned is very important to me. It's alignment. My people know alignment is everything. But the 4 values that I've created was raw, resilient, reflective, and revolutionary. And they all are not the basic understanding of those words. Okay. It's not. And I think that that's important because it goes into how I've gotten to the point that I am in now. I have been trying to get people to really jump on my platform for a very long time. And I didn't understand why it wasn't happening or why I wasn't attracting the people I was looking forward to. And when I figured out these values, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was it. I didn't understand where I was, what I was trying to be in my future. And when I think about friends and family, it's the same thing. I talk about that a lot. I had a women's panel not too long ago, and that was something we discussed on friendships. And I asked basically, do you think that we as women of color do not have friendships because we are constantly looking for something from that person? And my mom said, I don't think she meant to say it, but she was saying how she doesn't feel safe. And I caught it. I was like, I can resonate with that, because for me, I think the reasons my friendships have been so flaky is because I am holding on to a piece of myself that I need that one person to not betray me. I need them to be my safe haven. And when you put all that pressure on someone, who's going to want to stay? And it's like, for so long. Yeah, it's like for so long, I'm like, oh, people hate me. No one wants to be my friend. And I'm like, no, it's you. I had to really reflect and understand, okay, I have things I need to heal, clearly. And I have too much dependency on someone that is just here for a good time. They're just trying to go to brunch, and I'm trying to make sure that they know you are my friend for life until the end. I'm going to treat you the same way you need to treat me. And it was a mess. But understanding that now brings me back to my values, making sure that we're raw. And that's just me living in my original design, not trying to find a way to appease other people. And that's even society's image. As women of color, we are trying our best to fit in. And we don't. We are the way we are because we have so many variations. That's the point. That's the point, and being reflective, being able to acknowledge that feeling of my friendships and understanding, even if it took me 20 years, I'm okay with understanding. Cool. I can check that off. I understand now. I need to take those steps to do better. And that brings me to my next question with my understanding of being resilient. I took it on in the sense of I'm always going to experience something. I am always going to be in a period of growth. And growth, if you're not doing something right, it's not going to be, if you're doing something right, it's going to be hard. That's what we try to say. So if I'm on the right path, I'm going to be challenged. I'm going to be put in a position where I have to test my wisdom and my strength. And to a certain point, I do wonder if that is a conditioned mindset that everything has to be hard, or if this is something that comes with life. So now I have to bring you to your phrase. Is resiliency meant to be hard? What is your perspective on being resilient?
Yeah. It's not something that it's a response. And I just don't want resiliency to be always my response to life, that life has to be hard. So for me, as a spiritual being, I am always looking at my dance with God, and my relationship to God, and like, who is God and where is God located? So if I believe, and this is, wherever you are in your faith journey, whoever your listeners are, there may be people here who are agnostic or even atheists. For those of us who are spiritually identified and have some sort of maybe even religious affiliation, we have to really dive into who is God. And if God is life itself, it is the all that there is, then that means it is all good. I believe that there's a scripture that says, all things are working together for our good. Mm-hmm. So even though that have presented, it's all good, you live a real life, even those things that present challenges to us, there is still a silver lining. There's still a place of hope. And a lot of times with my coaching clients who are going through challenges or wilderness experiences, that yes, that is part of life, but also as you walk through it, and maybe you have to sit down and crawl through it, God is still an ever-present help. You still look to the hills from whence come your help. You still know that you are guided and that you're protected and you are loved, even when it feels tough, even when it feels hopeless and thankless. And again, just going back to our lineage and our ancestors, anything that we're facing in this modern day really does pale in comparison to what they went through, but they still had a faith. They still had the drums. They still had dance. They still had song. They still had things to pull them through. And so when we have that relationship with the divine, with our source, with our higher power, with God, Jesus, Buddha, Yahweh, whoever it is that you subscribe to as your higher power, the resiliency then becomes less necessary because it's not you anymore. It's like, you know what? What's the phrase? Jesus, take the wheel. Like it's too much. You can sit down and say, you know what, God, this is too much. My back wasn't built for this, but you were, and this is bigger than me. So I'm gonna need you to do what you promised to do. You said that your yoke is easy and your burden is like, I'm gonna need you to come in here and fix it because it's bigger than me. And I think sometimes our cleverness, our ego, our wit, our time, especially, we fancy ourselves as being smart. Oh, I'll figure this out. There's some things that you cannot intellectualize. There are some things that you just have to feel. And I know it doesn't feel good. But sitting in that discomfort instead of bypassing it, it will help it. It's like being in quicksand. The more you struggle in quicksand, the faster you sink. Sometimes, baby, when you're in the ocean and it feels insurmountable, just turn on your back and float.
I know that's right. And you know what? As you were saying, I'm thinking like, okay, these are really phrases that we had just probably handed down to make us feel comfortable in this state of being. And everything does not need to be hard. And it is exhausting. And you get to a point where you start to rationalize, okay, maybe this is God telling me I need to be stronger here to get through this for what's coming. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that so much, like you just need to make sure that you're passing, you're making it through. So God will bless you with this next trial of your life. But I'm like, well, I don't think he wanted me to struggle this much. Like I'm breaking down. I don't think that's right. And that makes sense. And it's funny that it takes simple conversations like this to connect the two. Now I'm about to change my whole website. Look, change my whole group.
Here, because seriously, I thought about it, and it was a minister. I think it was Dr. Michael Beckwith. He said that God's intention and the human condition are not the same thing. Because the struggle, the hurt, the name, the blame, the shame, the systems of oppression that exist, those are man-made. That was never intended for us. And I go back to, again, who is God? Where is God located? God is love. God is peace. God is joy. God is all the sweetness and the good. And, when we go back to the original nature, and again, many of us might be healing from the religious wound. And I'm not trying to convert anybody's theology, but I do want to name that when we think about the nature of the all that there is, what is that nature? And sometimes we've been handed down a story of vengeful, vindictive, chosen people. Only one group gets to thrive while another one has to perish, and our enemies. And it's like, no, your enemy is in you. Like, you're the enemy. Okay. This is before we even get out into the world. And again, this is not to say that systems don't exist, but systems exist because of consciousness. And if we can shift that, then you are free indeed. So what does it look like to imagine a world of peace, of joy, of abundance, more than enough, of sharing and compassion? We have to hold that vision too, even though we don't see it. Just like our ancestors held a vision of liberation that they didn't necessarily realize. Well, what are the visions that we need to hold that maybe we won't realize, but still are valid visions nonetheless?
I love that. I definitely do. I want to know where did you get started? All right. So everyone has a turning point. Someone else I met, they didn't start until 10 years ago. So I'm curious, what was your turning point? When did you get into all of it?
I think it was a progression, but I will say that there was a crescendo in my life circa 2018. It started with a death of a dear family friend. Monique was the picture of health. I'm talking about she was that 5 a.m. cyclist. I'm not doing that, but I am on my own health journey. But clean eating. She was part of a sorority. She was in Delta Sigma Theta, the Lynx, the Moles, the this, the that. Had a wonderful career in pharmaceutical sales. Didn't look her age. I mean, fine as wine, got better with time. Loved to dance, house music. She was a house head, loved it all. And then one day, as far as we know, it was non-congestive heart failure. She was here 1 minute, gone the next. She was complaining of chest pains one morning, and I believe within less than 48 hours, she was out of here. She had a phone call, and I remember my mom and her mom talking. She was in hospital. She had sat up. She was feeling better. And then she just started to decline, and then she was gone. Correct. And I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. Now, if she eats right, I'm talking about clean eating, picture of health. She's a cyclist. She is in all the things, all about community. She was in this organization, that organization, had a great career, amazing husband. I'm talking about this. Sis had the wedding of the century. Like, it made like the socialite, like everybody was talking about this fabulous, wedding, and they traveled. And while they didn't have children, they still had a very fulfilling life. And I'm like, ooh. And then there was another death, and then another death. And so it seemed like in 2018, like I just kept going to funerals. And so when you go to so many funerals, yes, there's a grief overload, but you start to look at obituaries. And you start to see some similarities. And from that moment, it caused me to really sit down and evaluate my life, like, knock on wood. But if I were to pass right now, am I living the life that I want to be living? Am I in the relationships? Am I in the career? Am I in right relationship with my family, chosen or blood? Are my affairs in order? No, they were not. I felt stifled and not really living fully out all that I know that God intended for my life. And I said, well, the only person that can do that is. So I immediately got into therapy, started doing MDR. Yes, honey, because I knew that in order for me to switch like really get on this pathway that was not necessarily in alignment with my family pathology and the culture that I was born into, they grew up very Judeo-Christian, grew up very, Black middle class. So of course you could be a lawyer, doctor, and you're gonna be a poor teacher, accountant, engineer. So like, these are like the 5 little categories that you can choose from. You get married, have 2.5 kids, live in the suburbs, drive a nice car. And if you're fortunate enough, you go on cruises, take a nice vacay. And that's kind of close. But what about passion? And what about, yes, travel, but what about going to places like Bali or Russia or Scotland? And I love, I love seeing, like, I love following like the Black women travel blogs, like Black women nomads, like people who live non-traditional lives where they just live maybe in Airbnbs and, they figure it out, or live in a tiny home, sort of this non-traditional way of living that just feels good for them. And I love reading stories about people that live the eat, pray, love. Like, they say, okay, you know what? This life that I'm living is not authentic to me and who I am. So who am I? and what feels authentic to who I want to be, and the life that I want to live. So I had to just rewrite my script. Like, I had to really sit down and quit my job, turn in my letter of resignation, and then booked a trip to Florida with a girlfriend. Yeah, just book. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay for this, but I just threw it on the credit card, and I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to do this. And when I came back to my classroom, because I was a Spanish teacher, so hola, ¿cómo están? I was a Spanish teacher. And when I came back to my classroom, after turning in my letter of resignation, I got an email, 2 emails actually. One was an invitation to read poetry for my Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib, and for her inauguration. I was like, whew. And an invitation to take on a contract teaching poetry. Whew. So I took one step. God took a quantum leap.
You better go. You better go. Yes, that is so dope. I love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If that's not inspiration, I don't know what is. That is amazing. Are you still into teaching poetry? Is that something you're still doing?
Still into teaching poetry, but my focal point is, business coaching for culture shifters, for the highly sensitive, empathic, female identified business owner that wants to create a social change, that wants to create a legacy and impact. And again, in our landscape on, Beyonce's internet, we hear all day, every day, make 6 figures, make 7 figures as a business owner. And while I never want to disparage anyone's desire and the income that they want to make, but at the same time, what are we doing with that income? Because institutions are built off foundations and endowments, and usually family connections. And I go to libraries or museums, I look at the wall of donors.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, the wall of donors don't have names like Jenkins, Johnson, the Wilkins, the Upshaws. I don't always see those names on the wall. And again, for a multitude of reasons. However, when we know better, we do better. We can't just spend our money on, just the name brand, on designer this or that, particularly when the designer this or that doesn't always welcome us. So where are we putting our dollars, and how are we advancing legacy? Because empires come and go. We have seen that over history. We don't see the Byzantine Empire. We do not see the Holy Roman Empire anymore. They all fade. And so when we are building things off of fear, tyranny, and ego, of course it's going to fade, because the human soul desires liberation and to be free. But if we build legacy, legacies endure.
Oh, well, you got me about to go on this little website, give me the 23andMe, find out about my life. I'd find me $20, go and invest in a museum or something. I don't know, but we're going to do something, because that is inspirational. And that's exactly what this was supposed to be. And you have definitely inspired me. Oh my gosh. First off, thank you. Thank you. I have so many other things that are coming. I have so many things that I look forward to inviting you to, because I love your vibe. I think your presence is very well known, and I need it to continue to grow. I appreciate you. Thank you. Before I let you go, please tell us how we can get in touch with you, how we can work together in the future.
Okay, so good people. Like I said, all over Beyonce's internet. You can find me under Ber-Henda, BER-HENDA. You put in my name in Google, all the things will come up. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn under Ber-Henda Williams. My website, berhendawilliams.com. Please sign up for my newsletter. There I give spiritual hygiene, soulful biz tips. I highlight a different woman of color every first and third Wednesday. And then I just do things for the good of the order to help support us to not just elevate our businesses, but to also elevate our lives and to make an impact in our communities. Because I will say this, for millennia, women have been getting it done. Just full insight and inspired revolutions. We continue to lead pathways of healing and justice. This is just what we do. This is just part of who we are. And when we lean into a more feminine way of doing things, and that's not saying that, in the words of Jill Scott, I need you. She said it. She was like, I can change the light bulb all by myself. I can kill the spider above my bed, even though I'm scared. I still need you. And we do. And we do. We need y'all. We do. Love the men folk. However, we also have a charge. We also have callings. We also have passions. And those deserve full attention, full awareness, and dedication.
I love me some Jill Scott. That's my song.
We love you, Jill.
Yes, we do, girl.
Those next tour, look, opening, because you do poetry too. So
right, we gonna be there.
You're opening it. Okay, well, I'm opening it. Tell me where. You're opening what? Look, and Jill, bring Sugar Water back. Jill, Queen Latifah, Erykah Badu, bring Sugar Water back. I don't know what y'all doing. I don't know what stars need to align, but can we just please bring Sugar Water back?
Now we got to get this viral. When this video gets viral, so she can hear us.
Yes.
We need this.
Make it happen, please. Please and thanks.
Right. I love it. I love it. I appreciate y'all. You already know. This is Contrary to the Culture. I am Jasa. Every Tuesday, y'all come back and hear another amazing story, perspective. We're trying to make it grow. That's all I got to say. Until next time, bye, y'all.
All right, that was our episode. Thanks so much for listening to Contrary to the Culture. Again, I am your host, Jasa King. You can find full show notes from today's episode at audacityofwomen.com under the podcast tab. Let's connect on Instagram at Just Jasa Podcast. There you will find clips from our various segments and more information about yours truly. If you're loving the podcast, I'd be so honored if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. Until next time.
Ever need a boost, count on me for the 1-2. Trouble don't last when the tough get going. Baby, all we do is win, so show me my opponent. Adversity, doubt, stress, could care less, cause how we handle those like an S on our chest. Super proud of how we held it